Hi, and welcome to our video module on collaborating with volunteers in Catalyst. In this session, you'll explore how volunteers are recruited, trained, and matched with teachers in Catalyst. You'll learn how to select roles for volunteers to play in supporting students across a Catalyst project, and you'll reflect on and build best practices to work collaboratively with a volunteer throughout the engagement process. At this point, as you prepare to launch your Catalyst project in partnership with volunteers, you're likely wondering, what will it look like to have a volunteer in your classroom? How will they support students in Catalyst projects? And what will you need to do to make sure everyone is ready? We imagine you're also eager to hear more about how volunteers are preparing for this process. Where are they coming from? How do Citizen Schools ensure we're making the right match with your classroom? And that volunteers are walking and ready to work with you and your middle school students. In this session, we'll explore all of this in a bit more detail. Over the past 24 years, Citizen Schools has been recruiting, training, and supporting volunteers from across sectors to share their expertise with students in schools. Through the Catalyst program, we are thrilled to offer classroom teachers the opportunity to connect directly with industry professionals who can share insight into their career paths and help students connect what they're learning in their projects to work in professional fields. Catalyst volunteers support and strengthen your hands-on project-based unit through visiting about once a week over the course of your project. Each of your volunteers commits to 3 to 5 classroom visits with the same group of students over the course of your project. Let's take a look at the volunteer engagement process in more detail. While classroom visits are a core part of the volunteer engagement process, Citizen Schools' work with Catalyst volunteers actually starts long before that first visit. Just as we have been recruiting, training, and supporting incredible teachers like you to launch your project, Citizen School staff have been hard at work recruiting volunteers from our networks to support each of our Catalyst projects. We then prepare these volunteers to support students, first through a rigorous application screening and background check process, and then through a 2-hour training that covers both the project they will support and an introduction to developmentally appropriate and culturally responsive practices. Once we know your requested dates and times for volunteer visits, we then confirm your volunteer match and connect you with your volunteers through what we call a collaboration call, a 30-minute introductory call facilitated by Citizen Schools. From there, you'll be off and running, beginning your Catalyst lessons and working directly with your volunteers to plan for their ongoing support of students. Let's take a closer look at those visits and how they span across a Catalyst project. Each classroom teacher we work with in Catalyst begins by selecting a Catalyst unit, for example, climate science or metabolism, and determines when in the school year they will teach this unit. Units typically last about 3 weeks. So in the example you see here, we have a teacher beginning a project in early November and extending into the first week of December to account for the Thanksgiving break. A classroom teacher also selects which classes of students they will teach Catalyst with. In this example, a teacher is teaching Catalyst to their first period 7th grade class from 8 to 9, their third period 7th grade class from 10 to 11, and their fourth period 6th grade class from 11 to 12. Each of these class periods gets at least one distinct volunteer who supports that same group of students through 3 to 4 visits. Because this particular teacher in this example is teaching Catalyst to 3 class periods, they receive 3 volunteers to support those classes. From there, we can look at specific dates for each volunteer. In this example, volunteer 1 is volunteering on Tuesdays, November 5th, 12th, 19th, and December 3rd from 8 to 9 a.m. Volunteer 2 will be visiting the class on November 4th, 12th, 18th, and 25th from 10 to 11 a.m. And Volunteer 3 will attend on Tuesdays, November 12th, 19th, 26th, and December 3rd from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So what do volunteers do during each of these visits? Regardless of whether volunteers support a unit on thermal energy or metabolism, volunteer visits tend to follow a particular arc. In your training sheet, you'll find a link to 3 graphic organizers called Volunteer Engagement Across a Project. These handouts list common volunteer activities during an early classroom visit, a visit midway through a project, and a late visit toward the end of a Catalyst project. After this module, take a moment to review these handouts in detail and reflect on how you would summarize the role of a volunteer at each stage and what factors you think would contribute to successful engagement at various stages of a project. As you review these sheets, I hope you'll notice some themes. Across any Catalyst unit, early on in a project, a volunteer is getting to know the students. Students are getting to know the volunteer, and everyone's getting to know the project. Midway through, that same volunteer is supporting students as they research, brainstorm, build, design, and experiment. Later on, as students are wrapping up their projects, volunteers support students in putting polish on final products and helping students prepare to share out all they've learned. So what exactly will volunteers do in your Catalyst project? If you've completed part 1 of your project map, you've likely already reviewed the volunteer visit checklist for your unit. This checklist is designed to give you a starting point for building out a plan for volunteer roles. As part of your project mapping process, you'll have an opportunity to select roles from this checklist and to add any additional roles you think will support students in meeting their project goals. Now let's take some time to think about the collaboration side of your partnership with your volunteer. To start, take a moment to reflect on best practices you employ when collaborating or working in partnership with others. Whether that's through engaging with other volunteers, collaborating on group projects at work, or participating in teams you work with outside of work. I hope that many of the strategies you think about when thinking about collaboration with volunteers are reflected here on our list of best practices. Here's a bit more detail on these practices, which we've found to be helpful in building a strong Catalyst partnership between teachers and volunteers. First, take time on the front end to align around schedules and modes for ongoing communication. Consider talking through how and when you'll touch base after visits, and how you each prefer to receive ongoing communication, whether that's via email, text message, or phone call. Second, invest time in relationship building. While it's easy to want to jump right into the work, taking time to get to know your volunteer and giving them a chance to learn about you and your students will enable you all to work smoothly and effectively together over the course of your visits. Third, communicate proactively and don't be afraid to ask for what you need. While it can feel a bit awkward to direct another adult who is so generously giving their time to support your classroom, rest assured that volunteers are eager to follow your lead and to do what will be most helpful to you and your students. So don't be afraid to give them a little guidance. And finally, embrace the messiness. At the end of the day, this is relational work, which means not everything can be planned in advance. But that's also where a lot of the magic comes from. By going into this work with an open mind and a little flexibility, we know you and your volunteer can build a powerful and meaningful partnership. At Citizen Schools, We believe that one key factor in ensuring collaborations go well is starting off on the right foot. To support this in Catalyst, Citizen Schools facilitates an initial introductory call to give you and your volunteer a chance to meet, learn about each other, and talk through details for their first visit before their first day in the classroom. These calls are quick, 30 minutes max, and Citizen Schools is on the line to make sure things go smoothly and to answer any program-specific questions that might come up along the way. Here's a sense of what the agenda is usually like. In your training packet, you'll find a handout with several case studies that give examples of interactions among volunteers, teachers, and a Citizen Schools program manager. After this video, please take a moment to review these case studies and to reflect on the questions on this slide. Please note, these case studies are all designed to be examples of good but imperfect collaborations. In other words, lots of great strategies that you should feel free to pull from, but definitely also room to grow and improve. We encourage you to reflect on what you might have done differently as a teacher in this scenario, and what other strategies you might add to ensure strong partnership with your volunteer. As you read, consider: are there places where a volunteer or a teacher might have flagged something a bit earlier to enable stronger planning? Are there times when a teacher or volunteer reached out to a program manager when they could have reached out directly to their volunteer or teacher partner? And above all, what are some notes to self you might make now to ensure you and your volunteer have clear, open, and mutually respectful lines of communication? Remember, while we encourage you to reach out directly to one another, please know that Citizen School staff are always available to jump in and support anytime we can be helpful. As we close out this module, let's take a look at some of the next steps you can expect from us and to-dos to keep on your radar. First, once you've completed the assignments for this session, be sure to complete your post-course survey at bit.ly/catalystteachersurvey20. And remember to submit your project map for your Catalyst project so we can finalize your volunteer matches. We recommend all teachers submit these as part of this course. However, please note, if you're not teaching a Catalyst project until next semester, you will have a chance to update and finalize your project map closer to your launch date. We ask that details in your project map be finalized and confirmed no later than 1 month prior to project launch. This ensures that we are able to match and connect you with volunteers who are trained and equipped with the skills and expertise that will best support you and your students. From there, you're encouraged to schedule time to speak with your program manager to talk through your plans for launch and address any lingering questions on your mind as you prepare for your Catalyst project. And of course, be sure to keep an eye out for an email about 1 to 2 weeks prior to project launch, introducing you and your volunteers to one another and setting up time for your 30-minute collaboration call. On behalf of all of us at Citizen Schools, I'd like to thank you again for your time in watching this module and for participating in the Catalyst program. We are honored to have the opportunity to work with you and are so excited for all that you, your volunteers, and your students will accomplish together. We look forward to being in touch and are grateful for the opportunity to partner with you to transform middle school learning.